adopt the already established protocols. But in addition, let me appreciate, by the spirit of camaraderie, my circle of friends who accompanied me all the way from Abakaliki and who just walked me up to the stadium, up to the podium. That is the Edda Integrity Association. Let me also take this occasion to appreciate my colleagues from the Faculty of Law at Afikpo Federal University. That's the staff and a good number of the students who also accompanied me in numbers from Abakaliki. Let me appreciate the distinguished elders, the Esas, the Osus, and the rest of them who have been custodians of the custom of Edda and Afikpo. Without forgetting my colleagues from Afikpo Federal University and White, that's all the lecturers, all the academics and scholars from Afikpo Federal University, as well as my colleagues from Ebonyi State University, where I was and served as an HOD of Public and Private Law, and where I currently serve as an adjunct professor. Without forgetting my amiable wife, who has been of great inspiration to me, especially in this period of preparation for this lecture, Barrister Joyce Nena Eseni. I know she's very much interested in this aspect of my appreciation. If I hadn't done that, I would have been in trouble. So let me. So I thank you all for coming. This is the hour. I was told before now, just a while ago, that the lecture is going to take just 30 minutes. And my preparation, I envisaged a lecture to be delivered for 2 hours. My first challenge is how to bridge it at this moment. But I'll try my best. In case I'm not able to confine my lecture within 30 minutes, please, I beg you, don't interrupt me. I can assure you it will not last beyond an hour. What is the subject matter of this lecture? What is the subject matter of this festival? If I'm asked, I think it's yam, which is highly reputed as the king of crops in the entire Igbo land. And so we need to ask ourselves and perhaps think on what factors militate against production of yam, and what factors, what are we expected to do to ensure that production of yam is on the increase. Now, I realized growing up, yam used to be a staple food in both Edda and Afikpo, if not in Igbo land. But I've discovered of recent that yam is becoming a luxury in many homes, in many families. For you to get 5 tubers of yam, 4 tubers of yam, 3 tubers of yam, you need to have 20,000 naira at least. So it has become a luxury, which rice used to be before now. Before now is only on Christmas periods, on festivities, that some homes, families eat rice. Now yam has taken over that prestigious condition where before you eat yam, you must have, for civil servants, committed your salary. And when I looked at the yams tied up in that makeshift barn there, I had to quickly ask, where are these tubers of yam from? Because I don't think this size of yams are still being produced in Edda and Afikpo. Until somebody told me it's from the riverine somewhere at Oziza, where there is enough water. Ladies and gentlemen, it calls for a concern. Otherwise, yam is gradually going into extinction. And that is what informed this topic today. The topic is the Ikeji Festival, land inheritance and traditional legal system among the Afikpo and Edda. A legal perspective in the light of the Land Use Act 1978. Now, why is this topic very important? Land is what I describe as the substratum, the basis, the fundamental for production of yam, if not, in fact, all crops. And so, the devolution of yam, the alienation of yam, the availability of land, to all who are interested in farming and agriculture is very important. The system of land alienation, the system of inheritance of law is of fundamental importance, because without land, we cannot cultivate any crop, particularly yam. So this lecture is going to assume not just the cultural perspective, but more of the legal perspective. In fact, the socio-legal perspective of land inheritance. Now, we have partitioned this lecture into about 6 to 7 sections. First, the introduction, which we have just done, and then we'll also consider the cultural background of the Ikeji festival, and then the traditional land inheritance among Afikpo and Edda. We shall also look at the Land Use Act, the key provisions, and the implications. And we'll look at the traditional legal system and dispute resolution vis-a-vis judicial interpretation of customary land rights. And then we'll look at the challenges and the points of friction between customary laws and statutory laws, which of course both make provisions for land inheritance. And then we also look at one of the striking challenges, which I call gender challenge, where women is obviously excluded in most cases from land inheritance. Now, talking about the cultural background of the Ikeji festival. Now, those who have deep-rooted knowledge on customary law are present here. So I will not take much of my time talking about the cultural background of the Ikeji festival. What I can only mention here is that it marks the end of farming season and the beginning of harvest. And of course, it is deeply rooted in both rites of passage, land inheritance, succession, and legitimacy within traditional institutions. And of course, it plays a number of roles, amongst which it is the ritual affirmation of the patrilineal and the matrilineal land ownership. Recall that in Igbo land generally, the patrilineal land inheritance prevails. It is only in some groups such as Afikpo and Edda that you have the intersection of patrilineal system and matrilineal system, whereby people inherit not just land, other properties through their maternal lineage. It also serves as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism, because it is during festivals like this, the Ikeji festival, that land disputes are settled among kindreds. And also it performs a restorative justice, strengthening social cohesion, just like we are today. It unites us, it brings us together, and gives us the impression that we are one and the same body. Now, traditional land inheritance in Afikpo and Edda, I have already mentioned. In Afikpo and Edda, we have this dual descent and dual system of inheritance. It is partly patrilineal and partly matrilineal. Now, people inherit lands, if not absolute inheritance, at least possessory rights over those lands, either through the father or through their mother's lineage. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages of this. Our emphasis is on the disadvantages, which of course have led to the enactment of the Land Use Act, which is an intervention of the government, both federal and state government. A legislative intervention, anyway, to curb the discriminatory tendencies of our matrilineal and patrilineal land inheritance. Now, in Igbo lands, it is patrilineal. That means inheritance or devolution of land to women is actually and outrightly excluded. It is only in Afikpo and in Edda that the system, which is matrilineal, which runs side by side with patrilineal, has come to ameliorate a bit of the exclusion of women from inheritance, even though it is to a very limited extent. Now, in Afikpo, Afikpo is renowned, as Okpudo is renowned for its elaborate social institutions, which includes, amongst others, the Ogo court and the age grade system. However, what is important to us is the regime of inheritance, which follows the patrilineal and the matrilineal lineage, and of course plays a critical role. Amongst the roles it plays is one, it guarantees land gifts to our daughters, that's matrilineal. Not only our daughters, but also our illegitimate children, that is persons who are born out of wedlock, we'll have to explain later. In Edda also, while the patrilineal lineage or lineage is predominant, it also shows a strong matrilineal influence, especially in inheritance through maternal uncles, particularly in the absence of male heirs. Therefore, matrilineal inheritance does not mean outright transfer of title anyway, but is seen in a patrilineal system where life interest in land by maternal kings, and also where reversionary interest operates to guarantee the succession and devolution of land, not just to our children, male children, but also to our female kindred members. Customary law in both communities, of course, still governs till death. But we have noted as one of the findings and one of the challenges that both systems, imposes on us. One, both systems to a very large extent exclude women. That's one. Two, they exclude the rights of persons born out of wedlock. Two, the system operates what we call their ownership, whereby ownership of land is absolute and only reserved to those kindreds who from time immemorial have acquired the land, either by gift, by conquest, and by first deforestation. Therefore, if your lineage or your kindred does not have or exercise ownership of any piece of land, it becomes impossible for you to gain accessibility to land, let alone exercising possessory right over it in terms of using or exploring the land for farming or agriculture. So you realize, or we realize, a situation where many lineages, many kindreds find it difficult to access land for purposes of agriculture, not even for any purpose. Now, these are some of the challenges that led to the intervention of the federal government by legislative measures. And the federal government established the panel that will solve these problems, which led to the establishment, or rather the enactment of the Land Use Act. And that leads us to a discourse of the Land Use Act 1978. Permit me to mention one or two of the provisions of the Land Use Act and their implications. The Land Use Act, enacted in 1978, has as one of its key provisions, which is Section 1. Section 1 of the Land Use Act vests all land in the states in the governor to hold in trust for the people. Section 28 empowers the governor to revoke rights of occupancy for overriding public interest. The implication is that the Land Use Act does not abolish, I repeat, does not abolish customary tenure, but subject it to statutory control. And that is where we have great concern and interest. That our customary law, yes, in existence, but have been modified by the statutory provisions of the Land Use Act. So the Land Use Act plays a principal role of subjugating our customary practices in the name of customary law in terms of land inheritance to its regulations. Now, Section 2 of the Land Use Act grants governors the power to manage urban land while local governments handle non-urban land. Now, what the implication is that the traditional practices, such as the ones marked under the or during the Ikeji festival, must align with the Land Use Act administrative regime. Number 3, customary rights of occupancy are recognized under Section 6, and every family or family lands can be held in accordance with customary law. However, according to Section 34, Sub 1 of the Land Use Act, the Act recognizes individuals in urban areas who, before the commencement of the Act, had rights to land under customary law. Now, finally, Section 36 recognizes customary right of occupancy, especially in rural areas. The implication of the foregoing provisions with respect to land tenure system for Edda and Afikpo is that customary ownership is converted into customary right of occupancy, otherwise referred to as deemed right of occupancy. Now, the rights we exercise over lands situated in the rural areas, such as Afikpo and Edda, is rightly conferred to us under the Land Use Act. It is referred to as deemed right of occupancy. It has the same effect with the certificate of occupancy given by the governor when you acquire rights to the use of land. And let me also state this. One of the innovations of the Land Use Act is the complete abrogation of outright ownership over a piece of land, over land. What we exercise even in the rural areas is possessory rights, both the deemed right of occupancy and the certificate of occupancy confers on every person who has interest in land the possessory right, which of course are referred to as interests in land. And the maximum anyone can exercise is 99 years. Don't ask me what happens after 99 years. Of course, after 99 years, we can apply for what? A renewal of the certificate of occupancy or a renewal of the deemed right of occupancy. Now, one of the provisions that we have cited under the Land Use Act is Section 1, which is very important and critical to our discourse. What does Section 1 says? All land in the states, all land, whether the rural or urban, have been vested in the governor. However, to exercise them in the interests of the people, to exercise them in the interest of the people. So the question is, what is the philosophy embedded in this provision? The philosophy is that while exercising the rights over every land in the state. The exercise must not be in the interest of the governor, but in the interest of the people. And one of the interests is for agricultural purposes. That's for farming. And so people need to have access to land in order to ensure continual production of yam, which is the king of crops and which is the reason why we are gathered here. Yam, for all intents and purposes, has always played a critical role of being the pride of the people, especially in Afikpo and Edda. And so it is important that we dwell largely or richly on the availability or the propensity of every farmer, every person interested in acquiring land to have access to land. And we are suggesting, by way of enjoining the governor to take a proactive step, an affirmative step, to not just make provisions for the welfare of the people in terms of other areas, but to make land available for people to farm so that we have enough to eat. And I also want to use this opportunity to talk to our politicians and our leaders, both captains of industries, that the best legacy we can hand over to our youth and to the rural dwellers. It's not just to buy gift items and distribute to them. We can, as a matter of policy, get lands, buy lands, give to them as dividends of democracy for them to, for purposes of cultivating agriculture or for cultivating yam in particular. Now, one of the essence of the Land Use Act is to avoid the system or regime whereby land was concentrated in few hands. And that was why the government took that legislative measure to take over the administration of land for the interest of the people. So if you have a case of land, one of the things you could do to help the system, to help the unemployed youths, to help the rural dwellers, is to apportion the lands to them to use for agricultural purposes, in particular for cultivation of yam. Now, this one of the objectives of the state is grounded in section 16, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The state shall shape its policy to ensure the advancement of well-planned and balanced economic growth. In addition, the nation's material resources shall effectively be utilized and fairly distributed for the benefit of all. And again, the economic system does not allow wealth or control over production and trade to be concentrated in few hands. Now, this presupposes that one of the resources for production is land. And it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that land is not limited in few hands. It's also the responsibility of the state to ensure that such material resources such as land is effectively utilized and fairly distributed for the benefit of all. This is a constitutional provision. I don't know the extent our state governments, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, have been able to live up to this expectation. And section 6, subsection 6, paragraph C has made it impossible for us to enforce this responsibility on our government. What does section 6 say, subsection 6? It said in the event of breach to live up to this constitutional responsibility, no citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is allowed to approach the court to complain. So that is what we call ouster clause in our constitution. So you realize, I realize that the only solution is to appeal to the conscience of the governor. And our leaders, that's the governors. I'm not talking about the state governor alone or government alone, or states government. We shall appeal to their conscience to please make land available and accessible, just possessory rights to people for purposes of agriculture. Now, it has been observed that the Act positions the governor as just like the family heads, just like the community heads before the enactment of the Act, who held communal lands, village lands in trust for every member of the community or every member of the kindred. And where, as it were, a community leader or an elder is not allowed to alienate the land or any piece of land without the authority and consent of members of the kindred. Same, the governor is not allowed to alienate the land for any subterranean purpose except for and in the interest of the people. Now, there are a lot of submissions by some scholars which I will skip, but let me submit that the underlying principle or policy rests on the governor's role as a trustee, and same must be exercised for the interest of all. Now, let us consider the traditional legal system and dispute resolution vis-a-vis the judicial interpretation of customary land rights. Customary courts or their traditional equivalent, such as we had the Indiches, the Oha, that's the Council of Elders, historically adjudicated land matters using principles of equity, consensus, and ancestral precedents. Resolutions during the Ikeji festival carry spiritual finality, oftentimes with oaths that's a banjo or ritual sanctions as enforcement mechanisms. The communal understanding is that land cannot be alienated without the knowledge and blessing of the kindred, often dramatized during the festival. The courts have affirmed in a number of cases that customary law remains valid under Nigerian law, provided it is not repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. Now, that brings us to the question, what is customary law? Oftentimes, we are mistaken of what customary law is. The custom of the people, that's the way of life of the people, including the regime of alienation or devolution or inheritance or ownership of land. Now, there are several customs, customary rights, or customary laws which we practice in this part of the country, in Igbo land in general, which are inconsistent with the extant national laws. Now, this is one of the revealing aspects of this lecture. Where land alienation or devolution excludes women, for instance, it offends the provision of our Constitution. There is no one shall be discriminated against on account of, he mentioned several factors, one of which is sex. Therefore, a woman, a female, shall not be discriminated against in terms of inheritance of land, either from his father or from his kindred. Now, one of the ways that we identify our customary laws is to subject it to what we call validity test. One, it shall not be repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. What is good for the geese is good for the gander. If inheritance of land is good for men, it is also good for women. If a man has hectares of land and dies, it is part of our patrilineage regime that the surviving daughter voters do not have access to his properties, including lands. That is discriminatory. And not just that is discriminatory, the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is against it. And so I should be talking to our OSUs, our SRs, and the custodians of our customary laws, that we need to reassess what we think are our customary laws. We might be infringing upon the provisions of the law. And of course, if those laws are activated, if the exercise of the rights in those laws are activated, I'm afraid some of our elders may be headed to the jail. God forbid. So this lecture will afford us the opportunity to recalibrate our regime of land inheritance and devolution to the extent that we consider the women as having equal rights in inheriting land, not just land, every other property, because that is what the law says. Again, we should also note, if we can't learn anything, let us also learn that it doesn't matter the circumstances of your birth. The law protects the rights of every born, even if you were born out of wedlock. Never is no mamagi to purimegi. It does not make you any less than a human being. The law says, in the event that there is no man who claims your paternity, that your inheritance follows that of your mother. So if your mother is from Edem, as I am from Edem, now it simply means that if I have a sister who puts to bed, who begots a son, yes, out of wedlock, automatically Edem harbors him and he takes the lineage or the lineage of Ndebe Edem and has equal right to every person from that lineage. That is what the law says. It's not me that is advocating for it. And so we have to be careful some of the customary practices we engage ourselves in the name of customary laws. They may not be customary laws. Again, any customary law that is inconsistent with an existing law is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. Again, if it offends public policy, please drop it. It is not customary law. You might be treading on a very wrong pedestal. And if the law catches up on you, I'm afraid what will be the repercussions. Now, I understand that there are people who exercise fecundity of customary law. But today, you've got to realize that your knowledge, your deep knowledge in customary law has some flaws with what I've just mentioned. And I think one of the suggestions we shall be making is by way of extension to this Ikeji festival. Honorable Sir, you may think about this, to also organize a forum where our elders, traditional rulers, custodians of our customary law should be given orientation, especially in terms of the intersection of our customary laws and the statutory provisions, as well as the provisions of our Constitution. Now, it is important to assume that dimension in your political and administrative domains, because we need to do something different. We need to do what we have not done before. I'm very happy, sir, you know that you're a lawyer. I remind you what Lord Denning of the blessed memory, one of the foremost English jurists, said in Packer and Packer. He said, if we don't do what we have never done before, we cannot go anywhere. The law will stand still while the rest of the society goes on. And I draw that inspiration. If Afikpo, Ehubo, and Edda don't do what they have never done before, we will remain static while the rest of the societies go on. So, that leads us to the other topic, which is one of the challenges and points of friction between statutory and customary law. We have mentioned a number of challenges, but what attracts my interest more is the gender exclusion inherent in our practices. Now, but let me mention one of the two challenges that we are confronted with, both from our traditional legal inheritance and the statutory inheritance. The Land Use Act centralization undermines the traditional communal tenure, which is not right, and that will form one of our suggestions as we move on. Urbanization and mineral exploration in Ebonyi State have led to expropriation, often without adequate compensation or due process, thereby fueling communal crisis. And this is one of the things, apart from the explorations, some of the challenges we are facing, which the system has not fully addressed, that the Land Use Act has not fully addressed, has led to all these communal wars. You have a lot of them besieging us. The most current being the Amasri and also, land. If the act, the intendment of the act was given full enforcement, that crisis would not have seen the light of the day, whereby the governments shall exercise the interest in land and distribute or administer same for the use and benefit of all. Now, there is also conflict between documentation and oral tradition. Let me remind us that the only way to prove claim over land is by what we call traditional history. That is oral tradition. Now, it is subject to a lot of prevarications. It is important that we begin from now to document these customary or oral traditions. Now, it is important we do that so as to ensure certainty. And when we do that, some of the frictions that arise between families, between individuals, would be highly subjugated. Now, you realize that during farming season, there is usually predominance of land cases in Afikpo High Courts, and most of those cases are from within Afikpo and Edda, owing to the weakness of enforcement of the Land Use Act. Now, the last challenge we should discuss, it's pretty difficult, even though we have mentioned it, is the gender exclusion from inheritance. And I will mention one or two things why we need to do that. Now, apart from our Constitution, which has made it explicitly clear that no one shall be discriminated against, there are some international treaties and conventions, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and also the Protocol to the African Charter on Human Rights, on the establishment of the rights of women in Africa. Now, these treaties have made adequate provisions, encouraging state parties to ensure that they adopt only those customary laws or practices that favor gender equality. Now, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, for instance, which has called for measures to abolish all existing laws and regulate discriminatory practices against women, is of utmost importance. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, like I said, also prohibits discrimination. Now, listen to this. In the case of Ikeji and Ikeji, the Supreme Court invalidated Igbo customary law denying daughters the right to inherit land. I hope the women are hearing it. I'm not excited. I'm not trying to excite you into rebellion, but that is your right, because we have this conviction that the women population is about half of the population of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, if I have to be exact, permit me to go back a bit. We have about 230-something.5 million persons in Nigeria, going by the 2025 estimation. And that is the United Nations projection of the population of the people of Nigeria. Now, out of the 237.5, about half of them, 115 to 117, is the population of women. But guess what? The International Labour Organization has provided us with the data that out of the labor force in Nigeria, women alone is occupying between 42 to 48% of the labor force in Nigeria. Now, what does that presuppose? What it presupposes is that those who are competent, eligible, and strong enough to work, especially in agriculture, especially in the production of agricultural products, are women. Half of them are women. Now, if you exclude women, I want us to appeal to our reasoning, not just our conscience. If we exclude women from inheritance to land, from having access to land for farming, for agriculture, it simply means that we are cutting off net production of all kinds of agricultural production, including yam, for like a half. That means if we would have produced 1,000 tubers, what it means is that we are only producing 500 tubers of yam. And that is one working against not just our propensity to feed ourselves as community, but also is working against our national economy. And that is bad for us. And that is why we are calling on a reassessment of our customary law regime. We need to reassess our customary laws. We need to have a second thought of what we have been practicing. We need to do what we have not done before. We need to follow the trend. We go to other communities, we go to other societies, we see women becoming, assuming the center stage in production of goods and services. Why can't that happen in Edda and Afikpo? We need to look at a regime where land is concentrated in just very few hands, in very few persons. Those who are interested in farming, those who are interested in cultivating yam, are excluded from having or exercising possession over land. We need to recalibrate these systems and regimes. Sir, if the honorable member, Chief Okpudo, if in the next session you will consider as one of the constituency votes that you will administer to the people of Edda and Afikpo, especially to the youth, especially to the rural areas. If you will consider having to give them, instead of wrapper, instead of other items, if you will consider to apportion portions of land to them to farm and produce yam, that will be doing what we have not done before. And that will be of great benefit to our people and to national development. And like I said, we need to do what we have not done before. If we don't do what we've never done before, we can't go anywhere. The rest of the society will go on, while Edda and Afikpo will remain same place. Now, let me, by way of conclusion, before my 30 minutes elapses, say this. this regime of law is as provided by the Land Use Act. The Land Use Act does not abolish customary laws. What the Land Use Act has done is to modify our customary laws. So it is important for us to interface our customary provisions to the statutory provisions, which operate as a regulatory enactment over our customary laws. Now, let's also note that the Ikeji festival is more than cultural spectacle, yes? It is actually a living legal system, regulating inheritance and reinforcing land tenure among the Afikpo and Edda. Now, the festival and the concomitant traditional legal systems amongst the people of Afikpo and Edda provide us with a very strong, culturally legitimate, communally accepted framework for land governance. However, its practices must be constantly, I repeat, constantly aligned with the evolving Nigerian legal framework, especially the Land Use Act of 1978. And now we propose a number of suggestions. We're proposing a harmonized legal approach that will respect community traditions while ensuring equity and alignment with constitutional principles. Now, some of the reforms that we are suggesting include: one, recognition of traditional dispute resolution in the statutory schemes. Now, recall that there is no way we can settle disputes. There's no way we can achieve, peace in our communities without involving our traditional institutions. Now, you realize that, let me tell us this thing, it might shock us, that all the resolutions, dispute settlements conducted in our various communities by our elders, by village heads, yes, they can only operate where the parties have consented to it. The moment one party says, no, I don't agree with what this traditional ruler has, what these elders have said or has resolved, and moves to court, that resolution does not stand anymore. And that is bad. We need to integrate the traditional legal system and the traditional mechanisms for settlement of disputes in our statutory provisions. And that is one of the innovations I will also be craving our Honorable to please consider in the next time that the Land Use Act is to be amended. Consider the inclusion of traditional dispute resolution mechanisms as part of the statutory mechanism for settlement of land disputes. Thank you, sir. Number two, there should also be gender-sensitive interpretation of customary law. While we alienate or allow devolution of land to our sons, we shall also consider the devolution or inheritance of land to our daughters. A more community-inclusive implementation of the Land Use Act, I've said that. There should also be harmonization of systems, such as the traditional rights as operate in the Ikeji festival. This can complement the statutory provisions, and they can serve as a statutory compliance to land registration. What we are saying in effect is the Land Use Act advocates for registration of land under the supervision of the government, that's the governor. We are also advocating that our deemed rights of occupancy, that is our customary land ownership, should be well documented and registered to ensure certainty and not to rely completely on oral tradition, which oftentimes employs prevarications. And finally, sir, ladies and gentlemen, we are making a proposal that the customary land inheritance register that respects traditional rights formalizes outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make this very important statement. Let me make this very strong and enduring statement. And that is, by respecting cultural identity, which of course is our submissions, while at the same time encouraging land reform and statutory compliance, which we are advocating, we can safeguard tradition without undermining legality. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't do what we never done before, Edda and Afikpo will remain same while the rest of the society goes on and moves on. Thank you very much.
Northeast, in the State House of Assembly, God bless you. I also want to recognize Dr. Lawrence Oma. We are glad to have you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.